Welcome to the Godly Business Podcast. I am your host, Anne Jean-Pierre, and today's episode is brought to you by Better Sales Women, where entrepreneurs learn to master the sales conversation, 3x their income. To learn more, visit bettersaleswomen.com. Good morning, guys. I'm so excited to talk to you about our subject today. It's pretty much a continuation of what we spoke on last week, or some of it. And today I want to start by reading Luke 14, verse 28, which reads, "But don't begin until you count the cost. For who would begin construction for a building without first calculating the cost to see if there's enough money to finish it?" So I wanted to start off with this conversation, kind of continuing the conversation from last week. We kind of touched on the fact that beginning of the year, there were so many people who unfortunately got laid off, and this created the opportunity to start new business ventures, which is always a good idea in my opinion. Even if you still have a W-2, I believe that everyone should have some type of other streams of income, right? We read the verse about having multiple streams of income from, I believe it was Chronicles, where Solomon was talking about having multiple stream of income because you never know what will happen and what's going on the land, right? So, and nowadays with everything that we're seeing, it is very important to start your own business. I'm a very big advocate on that. But in starting your own business, what are some things that you need to think about? So this is what we're going to discuss today. We're going to go over 3 things that I believe before you start your business, you need to think about. Okay, so the first thing is, how much will it cost to start, right? As the verse suggests, you should calculate the cost before you start. Now, most of the time when people think of the cost to start, they often focus only on the cost in relation to material. And obviously, this is something that you have to think about, whether you're on the service side or product side, the cost of materials, even like for, your website, marketing, things like that. Yes, you have to account for that. The other thing that I don't think people often miss, or I think people often miss in calculating the cost, is the cost for their time. And often this is where I find that people undermine the cost and don't charge properly for their services. For example, I have had discussions with different hairdressers who charges, in my opinion, don't really reflect the time that it takes to do the work that they're doing. Now, I know within the Black community, right, we often complain on how the price for hairdos have gone up so much. But looking at it from the perspective of the hairdresser, right? So let's say the hairstyle that you want to do is going to take 8 hours in order for it to be completed. And this person charges $200 in order for them to do this hairstyle for you. And this is just an example I'm using because this is the one that may be simpler to get into, right? And so $200 for 8 hours, not counting if the person have to get materials and things like that, right? Just the time frame that it costs, that it takes to do the service. So the $200, when you break it down, it comes to $25 an hour. Now, someone could say, hey, you know what? This is better than going to, another job, because some jobs, it would take you a while to get the $25 an hour rate that you could do as, let's say, a hairdresser. But accounting for those costs, it may be that the $200 is not enough to account just for your time, the product, and is $25 enough to cover all of those aspects of your business, right? Because remember, you still have to account for your overhead, right? So whether you have a booth or your own salon, if you have to pay for different products and things like that, these are the costs that you have to assess and putting that, right? So someone may say, okay, $200 is not, $25 an hour is not a bad deal for, this type of venture. The reason why I'm bringing this up is then when looking at the same example, what happens now if it still takes you 8 hours, right? But then it's $100, right? So now, is it worth it, right? Is it worth it at that point? Because you're talking about less than $13 an hour. So oftentimes I find that people are so excited into starting their business and looking at different aspects. They don't take into account the time cost that it's going to take, the energy that it's going to take, and obviously don't account for the full products, right? Talking about product, this is something that this is something I also find is often either way underestimated or oftentimes overestimated. So, for example, I often find that, let's say you're starting your business, and obviously starting, you have to give yourself grace, right? We have to give ourselves grace because when you're starting the business, there are certain things you will not know until you start. So you have to create what I call a contingency fund, right? Well, I don't call it that, but this is what it's called, right? A contingency fund, because there are things that you are not going to account for that will just pop up starting a business that you're going to realize that, oh, hey, I'm going to need XYZ or more of this product, or more this software that I didn't account for in order for me to run my business more efficiently. So those are things that obviously sometimes you may not realize, which is why, and calculating for the cost, let's say you made the calculation, okay, this is my product, this is the time that it's going to take. So my startup cost is going to be $2,000, right? What I suggest is add a buffer to your upfront cost, what you think it's going to cost. So instead of putting $2,000, put in your mind that, yes, I'm going to put $2,000, but I'm also going to have a $500 backup in case I miscalculated something, I didn't account for something, and you have that buffer to cover you, for that mishap. So you're not strapped starting this business and not having, the resources that you need. Now, talking about this same subject, two things that I would recommend when you're calculating the cost of the business, and the reason why I say it's also time, is timing as far as when you're starting your business, whether or not you should just start your business right away, right? Or trickle yourself in. What do I mean by trickling yourself in? Meaning maybe while you have your W-2, start building your business, right? For most entrepreneurs, that is how they started. They start while they have their W-2, doing their little side business that eventually will replace their W-2 income. But even at that point, of course, it's different if obviously you get let go and you just have to do something because you need the funds, right? So I'm not talking about those specific situations, but even with those specific situations, you could still start your business and look for a W-2 employee, the W-2 job. And the reason, or 1099, right? And the reason why you want to try to look into those things is so you can get the funds to do the startup, right? You can get the funds to do the startup and you have the money to put aside. The other thing I said, to account for the time it will cost, is for those of us who have W-2 jobs and still trying to trickle in the time for a business, you want it to be where you can still have time to focus on your business, but you also don't want to sacrifice that in quotation guaranteed income that will help propel you to start your business, that will give you the funds to reinvest into your business, right? Because when you first start, it is a good idea to have that secured, quote unquote, secured paycheck coming in to make sure that, hey, you know what? I started out with $2,500. Is that just a startup cost, or is it that's what's going to cost me every single month to do? So maybe this month, I started the $2,500, but now next month I'm going to need, another $1,000 to continue the business because the business hasn't, produced enough to give me the full money back, right? Because you just started. So I've seen so many podcasts and different YouTubers that says, hey, leave your 9 to 5 and go into business. That I think is not a realistic or wise movement, especially if you can keep your 9 to 5 and do your side business. I would say do both, because that extra income will definitely help you in, expanding your business. Now, talking about expanding your business, this is the second thing that I wanted to touch on. Expanding your business, there's ways that before you expand your business that you have to take into consideration. And the reason why I say this is because oftentimes, let's say you start and you're calculating the cost, how much it will cost for you to start your business is $2,500, whatever. The first month, let's calculate how long it will take you, right, to get that money back. Because maybe your business, when you start, the first month is kind of slow. The second month, you start to pick up. By the third month is when you're really starting to see, okay, how this business is going to make and things like that, right? So usually it may and depend on your business, it may take longer, right? But usually within 3 months of you starting, you should start seeing and recuperating those funds back within 2 to 3 months. That's when, if it takes longer, and you having no clients, no contact, and you're being consistent, right? Now, it's one thing to say, hey, I started this business 3 months ago and I'm not getting answers. Well, have you done everything that you're supposed to do? If you haven't, you can't really count those 3 months as, you can't count those 3 months because you haven't done everything that you're needed to do. I'm talking about you started your business, you calculated the cost, you went in, you're doing your marketing, you're doing your content, you putting yourself out there, you're making offers, you're getting leads, you're making offers, and those 3 months is starting to go in. So now you're starting to see the fruit of your labor, so to speak, right? So I usually advise, just like dating, give it 90 days, give it 3 months to figure out, okay, how is this going? How much did I spend last month? Where was that money spent? Second month, okay, now that, most of the startup costs, where is the second month, where is that money going? How much did I get back? How many customers was I able to get? How long does it take me to book a customer? Do I have to talk to 5 people to get 1 customer? This is where in those 3 months you start learning your business. You start learning, okay, these are the things that are working. This is how much is going to take me to get, my initial investment back. At least in those 2 to 3 months, I should be able to get my initial investment back. And then after that, I can start making profit. So I do say the first 3 months, set yourself aside to just invest in your business and wait to get, those return on your investment. Now, when I say 3 months to invest in your business, I mean just those 3 months. to invest and don't go beyond what you already set yourself as your investment cost. Again, we already talked about buffers and things like that. The reason being is you don't want to keep investing in something and not see the results, but then keep pouring money into it. This is the rabbit hole, unfortunately, that a lot of people fall into, right? You just keep spending money, and I've been guilty of this. I've been guilty of this in other business ventures that I've tried, right? And this is why I'm bringing this up. You don't want to keep spending money and not seeing the fruit or the result back. You don't want to reinvest, get better material and all of that stuff until you, one, get your initial investment back and then start making a profit, right? Now, the second subject, I know I kind of like went off a little bit. The second thing is, when should you expend your business? Now, expending your business can mean different things for different people. Expending could be getting more employees, right? Expending could be offering more services or offering more product, right? Trying to branch out into different markets. So expanding your business could mean, so many different things. But what I would say is, depend on how fast your business is growing, right? So sometimes your business is growing so rapidly that you have to expend fast because of how rapidly your business is going. But I would caution, if you are in your business less than a year, to not expend as fast as you think your business is growing. And this is why I say this, because in the first year of your business, there are things that you are still learning. I'm going to use myself as an example. One of my businesses, I didn't realize that what the peak season were, right? So maybe from March to August were the peak season, right? This is where I'm getting a lot of contacts, my business is growing and things like that. But from January, February, March, things are a little quiet, right? And then, September, October, November, December, things are not as quiet, but they're also not as growing as it was in between those months. Well, guess what? In your first year, you may not realize that. You may not realize that, oh, wait, this is how the flow of the business is. So in those months, 6-7 months, for example, of your business growing, right, like crazy, you're getting so many calls and contacts, you may feel, oh my gosh, I need to go ahead and buy this thing and get this thing and hire this person and blah, blah. And then things all of a sudden start slowing down and you start panicking because you're like, oh snap, what's going on? And you overexpending yourself because you thought what happened in the past 7 months are going to continue, and it's not, right? So I caution you that before you start expanding your business and just start, hey, I'm just gonna, go get more things and invest back into my business. For the first year, I would suggest just slowing down and looking at the pattern of your business. Yes, as your business grow, you may have to expend and then give yourself room to retract. I look at it as like a rubber band, right? You need to be able to stretch it out and then stretch it back in when things are slow. So especially for your first year of starting your business, even I would say for the first 2-3 years, right? Because there's so many different factors that affect your business that are outside of your control, right? And you can't control what sometimes the outside market does, that therefore affect your business. However, in that time frame, I do encourage you to look at what it is that you need to encounter and learn the pattern of your business. One of the ways you could do that is look at other businesses. Finding a mentor is so key. And sometimes it's hard to find a good mentor, right? Also, if you can work in that industry before you start your business, right? Like, let's say you're thinking of doing a job for, I don't know, painting, right? I thought of painting because I need my kitchen repainted. But let's say you think, okay, painting, that's the job I want to get into. Maybe go get yourself a job at a painting spot, right? At a painter, and just to kind of see where and how their flow of their job is. That's something I would suggest. But the bottom line is, before you expend in your, expend your business, start to grow and reinvest and spend so much money because, hey, I'm getting clients and I need this and that. And then you find out, okay, in 6-7 months, the next 3 months, now it's super slow to where you kind of overextended yourself, trying to, make up for those 3 months, assuming that is going to continue or it's going to grow because of that growth period. Just keep those things in mind. This is something that I think you really should think about and be cautious of before you go and, start spending money and trying to expend yourself too fast. Growing too fast can be a detriment, especially in the first year when you're just learning your business. It could be a flow thing, and you just have to go through that year being very careful, learning where to expand and retract and how to do those in a way that's wise and not going to be a bad thing for you in the long run. All right. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is knowing when you should pivot, right? So when we talked about learning the cost, how much it will, how much does it really cost for you to start your business, accounting for time as well, and all of those things. Then we talked about expanding your business, learning when to know how and when to reinvest and retract and things like that. But also, as starting a new business, you need to learn when you should pivot. And that is really hard sometimes. I'm not going to lie to you. It's really hard sometimes when you just start because you are kind of, you don't really know what to expect, right? Even if you worked in the field, for so long. Being your own boss is completely different than working for someone else, right? And meeting their deadline and things like that. It's completely different being your own boss. So there are times where you have to make that decision to pivot and go a different route and try something different. And when should you pivot and when should you know how to, make those things? So 3 things I would within the when you should pivot. 2 things I want to make sure you ask yourself before you think about pivoting. And we've kind of touched on it before. Are you consistent? Are you consistent? If you are not consistent and you are, wishy-washy, treating it like a hobby, not being on top of your game, not doing everything that you could have done, not doing everything that you should be doing. It may not be that you need to pivot. It may be that you just need to be more consistent at doing whatever it is that you need to do in order for you to try to see if this is actually working or not, right? Because sometimes, like I said, for the first 3 months, it's really pivotal for you to be consistent, doing what you need to do, be on your ball, so that if something's not working, you can go back and say, hey, these are the things I tried and it did not work. These are the things I tried and it did work. And then you will have data to back up your decision making. So first thing is you have to be consistent, because without that, pivoting too fast, pivoting without that data can harm you in the long run. So before you pivot, make sure that you actually give it your all in this format that you were trying to do before you switch up. So you know whether or not this was actually something wrong with your your approach, there's something going on in the market, or something else. Because it could be that you were not doing your part. And that will take some real, like being real with yourself, because no one can keep you more accountable than you can, right? And no one can be as honest with yourself than you can be. So I ask you to be completely transparent and have an honest conversation with yourself. Like, hey, you know what? Maybe I wasn't as consistent as I should have been. So realizing that. The second thing is that I feel like before you pivot and look into, hey, maybe I need to switch things up, look at your customer service. Is your customer service area is an area that needs to be improved? I will tell you this. And like a couple years ago, I was looking for a marketing company, and I've called multiple marketing companies, right? And like, I want to say like 5 or 6, and I chose one, obviously, but 3 or 4 of them, the reason why I didn't choose them was because of their customer service. It didn't even matter if they were quote unquote the best company for me that could have been giving me the result, which I don't think they would have been, because obviously their customer service wasn't that great, right? Automatically, I'm like, I'm not doing business with this person because their customer service is not that great. And it sucks to say, and I know some people would get angry or get offended by saying this. I see this, unfortunately, in a lot of Black-owned businesses. I'm very big on supporting small businesses, period. I don't care, white, Black, Hispanic, whatever. I'm big on supporting small businesses, right? And of course, if there's, one that is a Black owned, I'm like, hey, I'm going to support a brother or sister. Like, hey, right? Whatever. Unfortunately, though, sometimes I'm just like, hey, listen, this is not working. I'm not going back to this business because this person doesn't value me as a customer. They don't treat me right as a customer, and they don't respect me as a customer. And I've seen that in so many different ways, as to while the product is good, the product that they are offering is good, your customer service sucks. So therefore, people are not willing to deal with your attitude and not willing to deal with you or your establishment because they're not getting that customer service that they need, right? There's a reason why when you ask people why do they go to Chick-fil-A and places like Publix, I'm gonna tell you why. I don't care how great that sandwich is. If their attitude was horrible, they would not have been as successful as they are, right? Publix is not cheap, okay? But people go there not just for the product, but also because they know if they need help, they're going to get help. They're not going to get attitude, right? The product is going to be there, it's going to be clean, it's not going to smell, all of those things. So sometimes that's something that you have to think about. Hey, maybe what you need to focus on versus pivoting your approach to your product and service itself, it may be your customer service. It may be that your customer service is not on par to what it should be based on the product that you are servicing. Now, if you look into all of that and you're like, okay, I've looked into my customer service, it's not the issue. I have been consistent, that's not the issue. So at that point, you may need to pivot. And the other areas that you have to look at before you pivot is, what are customers asking for that you currently not offering, or what it is maybe like you offer 3 things, but everyone keeps getting this one thing, right? Of the 3 things you offer, everyone just keeps getting that one package. So look at that package and see, okay, what is it about this that everyone likes? Maybe you need to drop the other 2 and expend on that one service, and then maybe try to find a way to create more services out of that one, if that makes sense. So if Example, you own a cupcake place and everyone loves your chocolate cupcakes, but you don't get as much things on the other cupcakes, right? Maybe create more chocolate cupcakes, but in different, you know, different themes or with different ingredients, but still chocolate. So that's what I mean by like you may need to pivot. Look at what it is that's really working really well and that people really love, and just hone in on that and focus on that. So those are the three things that I wanted to talk to you guys about. Before you start your business, you have to look into those three things. Just make sure you calculate the cost, take into account how much it really costs to do this business, right? Then look into whether or not you should expend. You know, it may not be a good idea to expend. Looking at the flow, especially if you just start, to learn what makes sense and what doesn't. And then lastly is when you should pivot. You know, the things that you should look into before you pivot, if you should pivot, and what to take into account before you make that decision. So that is it for me. We are almost out of time for us today. I hope that this is helpful. I pray that you, in launching your business, that you will be successful and that God will keep you and protect you and show you the way that you should go. If you have any questions or concern and would like for me to speak about a more specific subject, just let me know. I'll be more than happy to go over that. But otherwise, I hope you have an amazing day and we'll talk next week. God bless.